My name is Sean Patterson, and I am with a firm here in the Valley called Virtual Mobility Solutions. And what Virtual Mobility Solutions does is we actually go and we provide IT solutions for individual users, businesses, and technology companies. So the purpose of this talk today is to chat with you a little bit about what's going on in the IT industry. And I'm framing it within the paradigm of what's going on as it relates to small and medium business. I don't know, do any of you have businesses of your own? And you can have a one-man shop, that's fine. Anyone?
We're trying to.
I've got a couple here. I wasn't sure what kind of crowd we would get today, but if you're an aspiring business person or entrepreneur, this may be equally applicable to you. Equally, if you work in a company that's pretty progressive with IT, maybe this is a good opportunity for you to talk to your boss and see if you can implement some of these solutions and save the company some money, which I would couch that as a great reason for you to get a raise. So talking about some of the spending trends, budgets for IT companies now in 2013 are definitely on the rise. Obviously, everybody's pocketbook really got picked in 2008, and there's been a slow recovery. So we saw IT budgets for companies as low as $108,000 in the second half of 2009. Now we're seeing a significant increase. We're seeing almost 60% increase since then. Now, what is happening a little bit is, one, the solutions are advancing so rapidly that we're forced to sort of play catch up. And then the second is that we seem to be feeling a little bit better in the business community about the willingness to spend money. And what that allows us to do, especially when we have not been spending money, as we clearly have not been in 2009, what that allows us to do is to spend some more money. So this is a clear upward trend. I think that if you work in technology or if you use technology in your business, you'll probably see a good time in the next 6 months to a year to go out and see greater expenditures. Job growth has been a little bit sporadic. No longer are we in this economy where everybody has to be employed. We're living in a time where employers are being more selective. And if you're somebody who's out there looking for work, then obviously you need to be doing everything you can to hone your skills. Attending presentations like this is quite useful, in fact, because it can allow you to walk into a job interview or have a discussion with your boss about IT without being totally ignorant about what's going on. But we have seen in 2011 and 2012 hiring go up a bit, but so you had 31% at one point of companies wanting to add staff, but now we're starting to see a slightly downward trend where fewer companies are wanting to add staff. IT is one of those functions within a company that's pretty interesting as it relates to the spending side of your organization, because generally the more you spend in IT, the less you have to spend in HR. And it's just the reality that we increase the productivity, which, don't get me wrong, can be good for you. It may keep you in your job, or it may make you more likely to get that raise if there's more profitability overall. But the downside, the negative effect of that is that overall economic spending is not really turning up. So why are we tracking these IT trends? IT trends are important to understand because it allows us to better understand how we need to be spending our money as a greater context of our business. As we said in the previous slide, 26% in 2011 of these companies in the SMB space were looking to hire. We think that going forward, it may be as much as a third of SMBs are looking to hire. Now, the other the other important reason that we need to track IT is because IT affects the revenue of the company. Generally speaking, the more you spend on IT, the greater your return. So it increases revenue. It does this in a couple of ways. But the primary way that it does this is that it's a driver for online sales. So generally speaking, the more your company is spending on IT, the better it becomes at generating online sales. In 2012, online sales were $255 billion just in the United States. There are a lot of reasons to spend online. Not, one of the big things for IT buyers especially is that, buying online allows them to do a lot of research. In some cases, the only opportunity you have is to buy online. The other reason that we need to track these trends is simply because it allows us to spend in a more shrewd fashion. So we're talking about knowing what your IT budget is, planning for the future. Every company that I knew of does forecasting, and that's really important, of course, for any investors who want to invest in your company, as well as making sure that you have the cash flow. So it's one thing, of course, to know that you need to be spending money on IT. That's another thing to be, fiscally prudent and planning for the future. We'll talk a little bit about the consumerization of IT. What we're seeing right now is an era where we don't really carry laptops anymore. We don't have desktop computers anymore. In fact, as we'll see in future slides, the sales of PCs is really plateauing, even dipping a little bit. But on the other hand, tablets are really taking off, and this is kind of what the consumerization of IT is all about. No longer do we have a scenario where you go into work and you are necessarily using the boss's computer. Now you may be at home working, you may be using your own computer, you may be at Starbucks working or at the library working on your iPad, you may have your iPhone, you may have your Android device, etc., etc. The point is that now we're seeing a confluence where you have the business spending money on IT, but also you're having the consumer spending money on IT. In fact, one of the major developments, as we'll discuss, is BYOD. But let me finally say that one of the drivers of this consumerization of IT is simply cost, because the average selling price of a tablet computer is $381. The average selling price of a PC is nearly double that. It's $635. And we expect tablet pricing to slide as the demand will increase, but so will the supply. And that's the trend always is with a new technology. It's more expensive as it matures, and it gets less expensive. Let's talk about BYOD because it's really important to understand the relationship between consumerization of IT and BYOD. BYOD stands for Bring Your Own Device. And it's this concept that when you walk into your company, you no longer are necessarily walking in and using the boss's computer. Again, you may be using your own computer, or the boss may be providing you with a mobile device with the sort of wink, wink, nudge, nudge that you'll be using it more often and therefore be more engaged with the company, even in the hours when you should not be thinking about work at all. I know many of people who sleep with their cell phones, myself included at times. Does that make me a more productive worker? I don't know, but it certainly makes me a more accessible worker. And what that means for a manager in a company is that we can give our employees a little bit more flexibility than we would have otherwise. BYOD is sort of a general policy. The way that BYOD gets implemented is through a new area of IT called mobile device management, which has really seen a massive explosion. I like to think of virtual mobility solutions as pretty forward-thinking. We're very strategic in the products that we choose to carry and develop. So I'll get into the products that we carry and develop later, but the important thing is to take away from this is that we're seeing some big movement in the mobile device management sector. There are a lot of companies now offering MDM software. I wonder if any of you, are any of you government employees? And if so, shame on you for not being at work. Okay, no one. The city of Scottsdale, for example. Yeah, I see one in the back, yeah. Yeah, I'm glad to see someone's working. The city of Scottsdale now, for its city employees, I was talking recently with the IT manager for the city of Scottsdale, and he was telling me that one of the interesting developments that they have had is they've rolled out their own mobile device management software. And I was trying to get them to use our solutions. We offer a solution from Citrix and one from FiberLink. They're really, I think, top-notch solutions. We did some internal research that indicated that those were the two best. But I know that the city of Scottsdale has implemented Good, so that's another competitor. But the big trend is that in the SMB space, 60% of SMBs now have a BYOD policy. For smartphones, 54% of companies now have a mobile device management solution. For tablets, 42%. So these devices, which were just a couple of years ago, I mean, nobody had even heard of an iPad, was it a mere 3 years ago. In fact, tablet sales, as I'll show you, were like just a few million worldwide in 2010. And I'll get to the number in a little while, but you'll see the growth is truly explosive. I've seen a survey that indicated that somewhere close to 56% of SMBs have no plans, which is a little bit. This was a separate survey, so I haven't quite reconciled it. But I think the point is that not everybody realizes how valuable this is. It's got certain implications, mainly the ability to control your data better, because if you have employees who are, say, needing to access data remotely, you don't want the data to actually be stored on the device. And one of the advantages of using mobile device management is that the data is not stored on the device. It's actually stored on a server remotely. So if the device is lost, then you don't have to worry. You just give them a new device and re-enroll the device, and you're back up and running in a few minutes. It's no longer the case that if your computer or your device fails, it takes days and days and days necessarily to get you back up and running. Now, the properly managed IT setup, you're back up and running in minutes. Now I want to talk about the downfall of the PC, because we've seen worldwide sales of PCs decline. We haven't seen it as much in the U.S., interestingly. I mean, the downward curve is like sort of less dramatic. But certainly if we go and we look at the worldwide sales, because what's happening is that worldwide, especially in cultures that have a stronger, they're usually a smaller country and have a stronger infrastructure for these devices like the iPad, because of course the iPad and Android devices and iOS devices, most of them have some form of cellular connectivity. So it means that people can have this device that they take literally anywhere and everywhere and be able to access any and every information. In fact, I can even use my iPad in Starbucks to then go back and be literally using my computer at home. But what it's meant is that there's less demand driving the sale of PCs. People just see more value in buying tablets. So much so that we saw in 2010 sales, as I mentioned, were I think the number I saw was 10 million tablets. Fast forward to 2017, 410 million tablets will be sold each year. It's a pretty dramatic trend because we think in 2014 the sales of tablets will outpace the sales of PCs. The interesting thing about the tablet versus PC war, if you want to call it that, is that I think of the tablet and the mobile phone devices as sort of opportunities for consuming data and for using data, for consuming content. What you see actually with respect to PCs, I think of PCs as more creating the content. So you're not going to see the sales of the PC drop down to zero or drop down to just a very obscure number anytime soon, because at the end of the day, somebody's still got to create the content. But no doubt, more people than ever are going to be consuming that content. So I think, if anything, preserving that level of, for the people who are creating the content, they're still going to be buying PCs. So if you really like your PC and you just can't get used to the tablet, don't worry, you'll probably still be able to buy a PC in 10 years' time. For example, this presentation that I'm giving was originally done on my PC. I didn't create this on a tablet. And it'd be kind of tricky, actually, to create it on a tablet. It would be very time-consuming. The graphics would be difficult to manipulate and that sort of thing. Maybe one day we'll get to the point where it's a little bit easier to use tablets for creating content. But for now, even using a tablet or a smartphone to write an email is a bit cumbersome. And until we kind of deal better with that, I think we're going to have a real need for PCs yet. On that note, the big trend for PCs as it relates to the SMB space is in VDI, virtual desktop infrastructure. So what we're seeing now is no longer do we need to buy everybody in the company a PC that's fully featured, that has lots and lots of RAM, that has lots and lots of software loaded onto it. Because what ended up happening is everybody in your company doesn't have a $1,500 PC necessarily. They end up having a PC with like $3,000 worth of investment. And if you're a company and you're trying to think of how can we most significantly reduce expenditures but increase productivity, I think the best way going forward is actually going to be implementing VDI, which is a setup where you have what you'd call a dummy terminal. Those of you old enough to remember when dummy terminals were everywhere, Telnet and that sort of thing. Now, I can literally, as you can see in that screen with the greater accessibility on the right, you actually see a Mac desktop. You can see in there the person's actually using their Windows PC at work. So they're accessing their Windows PC at work remotely. And they're able to do that because no longer is the data stored on your PC at work. It's actually stored on a server. And your PC at work, when you're using it, is actually going out and communicating with that server. And it actually allows more efficient use of things like software licenses. It allows you to buy fewer software licenses, because normally the way a software license works is that you buy it and you can use it as much as you want. You don't have to worry about anything. You just always have access to it. Now, but the thing is that you're seldom using that software all the time. Usually you use it maybe for half an hour at a time. VDI allows you to check in and check out software. And so it allows you to buy fewer licenses, which is a real big boon to IT in the SMB space, because software licensing is a central spending line in the budget. Additionally, equipping a VDI terminal only really costs about $650, like fully ready to go. The advantage of that also is that if the computer itself dies, because all of the software, all of the OS and everything is actually stored on the server, this has the benefit of having you back up. You literally just swap in new hardware and you're back up and running. You don't have to worry about the downtime of loading new software, transferring your data, because the data doesn't reside on that computer. It resides on the server, which of course if you're smart, you'll be backing up the server. So even if the server dies, you'll have a fail-safe in place as well. So it's a pretty big advantage to have both lower costs and greater accessibility. We have also, in our strategic offerings, have decided to really push collaboration software. Because one of the drivers to greater productivity in the SMB space is the ability for you to interface with clients, for you to interface with vendors, for you to interface with staff, maybe in multiple locations. More and more SMBs are realizing that it's not cost effective to have everybody in your company sitting in one office. In fact, at our organization, we've made a very concerted effort to make sure that everybody works from home or works on the road or wherever. We don't really like the idea of having a centralized office, because having a centralized office for us is just an expense that we don't need. So for us, we have a lot of collaboration tools, and we use products like, we're a Citrix solutions provider. So we're using all the Citrix solutions. So there are other solutions like Skype, which is now a Microsoft product. It allows you to share screens. It allows you to do video conferencing and of course, international phone calls. It's very useful. WebEx, GoToWebinar, and GoToMeeting are really useful tools for doing conferences. So if you want to communicate with say a potential client, or if you want to present a webinar, much like we could now. I could have just as easily presented this, and probably slightly more effectively, given all the tech problems we've had. Probably could have even more easily presented this with something like GoToWebinar or even GoToMeeting. So the idea that we can more easily tie people together is very central. It's also one of the reasons we use products like Podio, because Podio is for teams up to 5 people is free. And basically what it is like social management for a company. So it allows you to share ideas within the company. It allows you to even bring in vendors to work on projects. It's kind of like Facebook for your company. Increasingly, data backup is important because we found that, and the study indicates that 45% of small and medium businesses have lost data, and 14% were not able to recover it. So, and these are two separate things. Like, it's one thing to lose your data and then be able to bring it back. It's a whole nother crisis if you lose the data and it's lost permanently. And so it's very important to find a solution that allows you to not only back up your data, but allows you to quickly recover it. One of the reasons that we started offering technical support with data backup embedded for users is because we found that so many people were coming to us with problems of having lost data. And if you're on the other end of that phone, you kind of feel badly for the person, because it could be photos of your child for your child's first birthday, or they could be important corporate documents. It could be legal documents, financial documents, so on and so forth. And you don't want to lose those. It's a real problem if you do. So having that data backup and then knowing how to retrieve the data from that backup is just as important. So a lot of vendors out there do a fine job of backing up your data, but they don't really do much good to help you recover the data if you lose it. So that's one of the things we really wanted to focus on, and I think we've done a pretty good job of that. But I mean, you're looking here at a scenario where the average corporate expense for data backup was, they anticipate it'll be about $5,700. I think that number is going to possibly go a little bit higher, because there is a correlation between the cost of data backup and then the cost of storage. So the more data you are creating at your company, the more space you have to take up. I always recommend doing an on-site backup and an off-site backup. I think it works really well for SMBs to have a redundant backup. If you are a manager, you're probably thinking, well, okay, depending upon the size of your company, if you have 50 people, I'm going to bet, in fact, if you have 20 people, I'm going to bet you're probably got at least one IT guy on staff. One of the challenges that I always find going into companies is that you have, of a certain size, and the smaller, the worse this is. You walk into a company and the IT guy isn't doing strategic thinking. He's not doing the planning, the research to get these solutions that we're talking about here today rolled out. What he's actually doing is he's doing the nitty-gritty work, the low-value work, like the desktop support. One of the reasons we started offering desktop support was because we saw all these IT managers who are overqualified for offering desktop support. I mean, this is a fairly low-level activity. But what was happening was they weren't able to spend time making the strategic decisions that would positively impact the company because they were doing low-level activities that could be easily outsourced through services like our own. So if you're a manager and you're working, say you're a senior executive and you're working with IT, or you're trying to make decisions about IT going forward, how many people to retain, it's not necessary to have people in-house to do the low-level stuff like help desk support. That can be easily outsourced now, and it's better to outsource mainly because it's a variable cost. In other words, you don't want to be paying to have a guy sitting around. You want to be paying to have a guy helping you. And so one of the things that we do is we only charge you when the service is needed. But more importantly, if you're going to hire an IT person, make sure they're doing the strategic planning, because that will help in the budget making process. It will actually help also if you bring that IT manager into your other planning meetings, say for not just for finance and accounting, but engineering meetings. Good to have an IT manager around. In meetings about marketing, good to have an IT manager around, because there are a lot of great uses for advancing marketing causes by using IT efficiently. So it's really important to understand what IT can and should do for you versus what it really doesn't do so well. So you got to be shrewd about how you spend the dollar in an SMB. You don't have the billions to work with that Apple does, or any other Fortune 500 company. I want to go over briefly what we do at Virtual Mobility Solutions. We're offering mobile device management, which we talked about, VDI, which we talked about, desktop support. We offer a desktop support product where we can do it a couple of different ways. We can either offer a company the ability to do an all-you-can-eat service. So, for example, like end users like yourself, you would spend $35 a month for as much IT support as you need. Usually companies work a little bit differently, and we kind of cater to them a little bit differently in the sense that we are offering on a per minute support. So every minute that you need support, we charge you just for that minute. Like I said, we are a Citrix provider. This is what allows us to offer one of the mobile device management solutions that we offer, as well as the VDI is the Citrix relationship. GoToMeeting is actually a really useful tool. The quality is excellent. I haven't had, in using it, I haven't had the traditional problems that you have, like high latency and poor quality. You get those a lot with Skype. That's kind of why I put Skype toward the bottom of that slide, is because Skype is a useful tool, and it's great for doing international calls. It's not so good with video conferencing, especially in a sort of corporate setting. We also do custom programming of pretty much anything you can imagine, from .NET to iOS applications. We also offer document management. So if you're somebody who's got a lot of hard paper assets, chances are you either want to back them up, and you can back them up digitally. That's one way to do it. Or you just simply want to I see this a lot in doctors' offices. A lot of doctors will have staff, and they've got shelves and shelves and shelves of folders, and all these folders are filled with paper files, and how they ever avoid losing your data. Well, I mean, I think that's the whole point, is that if they lose one piece of your data, it's potentially your health at risk. So it's really nice to be able to have a document management solution where all of that data gets stored into a database that then the doctor can pull up and take a real full picture at in this case, what your health situation is. And then we also offer marketing services through Aperture Web Productions. And I encourage you to go to aperturewebproductions.com to check that out. I think a lot of exciting things are happening in the IT space, the IT functionality within the small and medium business in America, but also globally. The internet, no doubt, is still having a driving impact on the way we look at everything from hiring to marketing to sales to finance, you name it. There's almost nothing in a company that's not changing on a pretty regular basis. That's one of the reasons why I try to go out and do a couple of these presentations every year, because things do change that rapidly.